Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here, giving you a personal prediction for Lyndon Arthur versus Anthony Yarde. And as always, this is just my take. Your prediction can be left down in the comments section below. Love to hear all of them. Little bit of fight info here. We have Lyndon Arthur versus Anthony Yarde, as mentioned. This will be taking place at the Copper Box Arena located in London, England. BT Sport will be airing this broadcast on the other side of the pond, and this will be taking place in the light heavyweight division with no titles on the line. And this is an interesting, compelling domestic dust-up that could have some world-level implications. Sure, maybe neither man will become pound-for-pound best in the world, but light heavyweight is a talented division, and a win throws either man right into the middle of the mix with most governing bodies. I mean, they're both rated pretty highly with the traditional sanctioning organizations. Still, even more than all of that, these two legitimately seem to dislike one another, and you at least have the hope that this comes out in their performances against one another on the night. Certainly much more than in their first encounter that mostly just worked to cure insomnia. So, without much more ado, let's break this one down. For Arthur to win, I think he needs to use feints to keep him guessing. One of the ways that he kind of neutralized a lot of the attacks of Yarde was by feinting in that first fight. It wasn't always subtle. Sometimes it was overt feints. Sometimes it was very herky-jerky feints. He kind of mixed that up as well, which really kept him guessing. And this is going to work again to keep Yarde at bay. I think Yarde's going to try to be a bit more aggressive in this fight, as I think he knows he has to in order to win the contest. But if you can use feints to keep him guessing when he's trying to attack, it's going to make all of his work far more questionable in his own mind. And this, of course, will create the space and the timing and really the pace of the fight that Arthur's looking for, and of course will lead to his best chance for success. I would also say counter with that sweeping left hand. That was one of the best shots, in my opinion, that Arthur threw in that fight, outside of course, that very dominant jab, which is so dominant it's not even in my keys to victory here. We all know he has to jab. But in terms of that secondary shot that worked really well for him, it was that counter left hand. It works sort of like a hook in terms of the way that he would throw it, but it really was just a shot that he would sweep across, almost in a sort of in a just a fast-handed check left hook, something that would work to kind of neutralize again the attacks of Yarde, who when he was rushing in would be met with that left hand. Again, I think if he utilizes that in this fight, he can have some more success. And finally, again, I alluded to it to some degree, keep Yarde at a distance. And again, you'll be doing that with a number of things. Of course, hitting him with that sweeping left hand will make him question coming in. Using that jab that I did mention will, of course, keep him at a distance. But so will those feints. This all works to effectively encapsulate the perfect, what I feel is the perfect game plan for him, which is distance, pace, and controlling the action. And he can do that by incorporating all of these keys. Using that jab, using that left hand, of course, feinting, and that will create the distance that gives Arthur the best chance to control the narrative of the fight, and as a result of that, the outcome. Now, for Yarde to win, I think he needs to set up that overhand right. The one shot that Yarde consistently landed in that fight when he threw it was that overhand right, and that's just because the way that Arthur tends to hold himself defensively in terms of the shell that he likes to use, it just works to throw that right hand. But Yarde has to make sure that he's setting it up a little bit more. Flick out that jab, feint yourself, do some things that are going to allow for you to have more success with the single shot that you had the most success with. I couldn't really find a measurement in terms of who had longer distance, in terms of longer reach rather. It does look like Arthur does possess slightly longer arms though. If that's the case, especially, you need to set up your work. You can't just lead with your backhand all the time because you're going to be met with stiff jabs and counter shots that will get there faster. So and especially get there from further out. So you want to make sure you're setting up your work, especially the best shot that you landed in that first fight. But unlike in that first fight, I think he needs to make the jab matter. If the jab does not matter, if he's not working it, he's not utilizing it, he doesn't set up that right hand, he doesn't set up any of his other work, he doesn't allow himself to get in and close whatever gap might be there in terms of their reach, he has to use a jab that's going to allow for him to be successful on the night. If he's not using a jab I don't really see the result changing much. I think it'll be a close, relatively nip-and-tuck fight that Arthur tends to control and likely as a result of that earns the victory. That's obviously not what Yarde is looking for, he said so obviously. So as a result of that, make sure you're utilizing a jab that's going to be effective and make sure that you're doing it consistently. Otherwise, you're kind of out there just floundering. And finally, and this is the most obvious piece of advice I can give to either of the two gentlemen here, be busier and more assertive. If you're just going to let the rounds go passively, which tends to at least look like Yarde's temperament, it's not going to go well for you. Once again, you will be controlled by a guy who has a very well-schooled jab, who has already done it. He's already kind of set out a blueprint for you. Now, while you know what works, he knows what works and what he could potentially add to what works. So unless you're changing something too, the fight can only potentially get worse for you. You landed some pretty good, solid right-hand shots, and he didn't really seem to struggle with them. I'm not saying he loved every single one of them, of course, but it wasn't as though you rocked him every single time you landed, so a single shot is not going to work, is my point. You need to be busier, more assertive, make that jab matter, set those right hands up, and over time, that could chip away at the rock and ultimately crack it down the middle. Now, to me, this is a legitimate pick'em fight, and it's a tough one still. But if pressed, I'm going with Arthur to repeat his form in the last fight. Yarde has the ability to make me very wrong, I believe, if he's aggressive and sells out, so to speak. However, that just doesn't seem to be his mindset, his temperament. He's a headhunter, safety first fighter, though, that just doesn't fight that way naturally. It would be something he would have to really come out of his shell to do. He could switch it up, but I don't see it happening. He might press more at times in this fight because, again, he knows he has to. But the jab of Arthur will only make that worse. Jabbing and feinting, along with that kind of sweeping left hand, like I said, could possibly win him this fight alone. Just those two punches. The left hand of Arthur will make Yarde hesitate, and he will do so for the most part throughout the entire 12 rounds. Again, might get a little more aggressive in spurts, but I do see that Yarde just doesn't pull this one out. He could change this with a single shot, by the way. I'm not saying it's impossible. He is still a decent puncher. But he didn't get that done when he landed the last time either, and he only seems to throw those single shots. So that leads me to my prediction of Lyndon Arthur via 12-round unanimous decision. Now, the betting odds for this contest have Arthur as a technically slight underdog at a plus 100, with Yarde at a minus 130. But again, if you know anything about odds, that's basically an even money fight. And again, because Yarde is the favorite, at least it would be perceived by the promoters and whoever might else be involved in this fight, there's a solid chance that, of course, he could get the benefit of the doubt in another close decision. So smart money does say that this is an even money fight. That being said, I'm predicting what I think should happen, not what I think, might happen. And in this case, I think that Arthur probably pulls it out again. I think he might even do it a little more convincingly. With that said, when I'm looking at these lines, you have some decent value in placing a small bet on either man if you like them. I, again, would be placing that bet on Arthur. Is it possible that he loses a close fight or whatever it might be? Of course. But I think that's a reasonable bet, and especially if you're getting that much value for it. I mean, you're basically getting a straight-up bet in a fight where you've already seen how it can play out in their first encounter. And at that point, if you believe that it's going to happen again, as I do, an even money bet is about as good as you can ask for with the books. In any event, my prediction record is 45, 18, and 4 with 14 exact. How it survived last weekend when I was completely dismantled with my predictions, I'll never know. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, predictions, your bets, so on and so forth. Do you see a repeat for Arthur here, or do you actually think Yarde will pull off this kind of reversal here and split the fights between the two of them? Let me know down in the comments. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow. Click that notification button. I really would appreciate that. Please follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB, and you can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you there also. Be sure to check out junboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, more. I also have a link in the description box for a piece I wrote on the Devin Haney-Joseph Diaz fight / George Kambosos-Teofimo Lopez fight. In the description box, like I said, you can click that link and check that out. We'd greatly appreciate that as well. And as always, until next time.